In this video, I'm going to describe how to create a data analytic report. So just make sure that before you actually make the report, you have a topic of interest, presumably something that you're passionate about or interested in, or maybe it's just a topic that you saw on Kaggle or some website that has data sets and you thought it was interesting. Make sure you are able to get the file of the data set, and make sure that before you actually do the report, you do a little bit of exploratory data analysis. So basically play around with the data, make sure that you know how to remove the nulls and the duplicates, and the data is transposed in the correct way, and everything is set up. So that's kind of like some pre-processing just to see if you can output some data. So the general format of a data report, or just a report in general, is obviously you're going to have your introduction, you're going to have your methods, results, and then conclusions. You can also have discussions, recommendations. It's kind of loosely inspired by scientific study. These are generally the sections you would have in it. So for the introduction, you're going to establish the context. Whatever your topic is, whatever you're trying to explain, you need to let the person reading your report understand the situation. The second step, basically leaning off the context, establish a background. Just give a sentence or two. It's really up to you, how long you want the sections are. Establish a background, do some research outside of the data set and outside of the description of the data set, just to have a surface understanding of the context of the situation. And presumably before you've started this process, you have a specific question or a problem that you want to answer. So you're going to do step 3. After that, establish the problem. You're just going to state what you're trying to find out with this data set, and then why you're basically trying to find this problem, which would be the purpose. And once you've established all of that, that gives the person looking at your report a better understanding what's going to happen. This is going to lead into the methods. The methods is explaining step by step how the analysis is going to be conducted. So you're going to go over the topics of what programming language you're using, what libraries you're using, if you're using R, if you're using Python, if you're using pandas, presumably you probably will be using those things. If you're using an Anaconda notebook, a Google Collaborate notebook, or you're just putting the code in a different way. So you're going to explain how you clean the data, what steps you took, what nulls were, or what data points were nulls, how you remove them, any duplicate data, having that removed. Basically, this is just going to describe how you're cleaning the data. And then also you're going to state what type of algorithm you're going to use, or if you're just going to do an exploratory data analysis, which would just be data visualizations. So you would have all of that information in your methods. It's kind of like a research report where the methods would be describing how you're going to do an experiment. However, you're not doing an experiment. Well, for some cases you will be if you're doing a machine learning report where you don't know what the results are going to be, because you're using a training and testing data set, just explaining what the procedure is. So the results are basically going to be all of the data visualizations or the machine learning algorithms you used, all of the output of it. What did the algorithm actually end up doing, or what does the data visualization show? Anything that you used that maybe if for matplotlib it made a line graph or a bar graph or histogram chart, you would put this here, and you're simply listing the findings. You're not going to interpret any results. You're only stating the facts. You're just describing what happened in your report. Then going on to the next one, going on to discussion. This is where you're going to look at all of the output from the results section and interpret them. You're going to explain how the analysis, how the outputs of the data visualizations or machine learning algorithms addressed the problem, and you're going to make connections between the data and the actual research problem. And then you can also leave a section or an area to basically describe the weaknesses of your study. So that way, if someone wants to replicate it or trail off of your report, they have reference to do so. So you're gonna, the conclusion is gonna readdress the problem, which started out in the introduction. And since now that you have all this context behind it, not only from the background, but from the results and all of the output from the results section and the discussion section, you're going to discuss any major conclusions, basically connecting all of the information together in one section. And then once you're set up with the conclusion and you're on to your recommendations, you don't necessarily have to have this part, but if you want others to follow in your footsteps and maybe hopefully make improvements, someone can kind of test out their own recommendations, or you can just test them out on your own. So this is a report I did a couple months ago. It's on Kaggle. I'll leave a link in the description to the original post. I made an introduction. You can do this in the Jupyter Notebook. And then I did a method, just basically explaining I'm going to use Jupyter Notebook, pandas, and then the results section. That's when the code actually starts. And then you import your data set. And then so in this study, all I did was data visualization. So I looked at the military spending of multiple countries. That's what the topic of the data set was. And I wanted to see first of all, I wanted to see which country spent the most on military. And with this line chart, you can see US spends the most compared to other countries. I also compared it to BRIC countries, which are Brazil, China, Russia, India, which have an economic influence over the US. So I think that's an interesting way to compare ourselves, just because we spend so much that we spend more than the rest of the entire world. So the only way to really compare it to see where we stand is to combine a whole bunch of countries. And then so I just made the output display that with all of the separate countries. And then I wanted to see how it would look if I combined it, basically combining all of these countries together. So I combined all the information together and I got something that looked like this. So this is all of the military spending of all the BRIC countries combined. And I just thought it was kind of interesting that the USA is still above all those countries. And it does show it is increasing as time goes by, but I'm sure this rate will catch up to the US eventually. And then basically I made a little discussion, conclusion, recommendations. And as I mentioned in the previous video before, that's when, at this point, once you feel that you're done, that's when you document it, put it on a website, make a video on it, make sure people see what you're doing. And I hope this video was helpful. Hope this section of the video is helpful just to get you an idea of what you need to do. It's not so much a coding video, but just an idea of how you would format a data report in a specific way. And with that, that's about it. See you in the next video.